Good morning, everyone. My name is Dana Waller, and I would like to introduce you to the next installment of the CPU 2AL speaker series. Today, we have the pleasure of having a presentation from Dr. Yogesh Vohra. Dr. Vohra is a professor, university scholar, and associate dean in the Department of Physics at the University of Alabama at Birmingham. He is also the founding director of the Center for Nanoscale Materials and Biointegration. Without further ado, Dr. Vohra.
Thank you, Dana. Greetings, everybody. I'm Yogesh Vohra from University of Alabama at Birmingham, and I'll be talking about microwave plasma chemical vapor deposition of diamond and novel superhard materials. So let me just restart the presentation. Okay, good. So these are the faculty participants. I would like to thank my colleague, Dr. Aaron Catledge and Chengqian Chen, and research staff, Dr. Paul Baker, Dr. Gopi Samudrala. And I'll also like to acknowledge students which are part of this program: Kalal Chakravarti, Wei Chi Chen, Dr. Sumner Harris, now who is at ORNL, Bria Starr, and Seth Ivan. So to give you an outline of the presentation, I'll be talking about 4 different topics. So one is homoepitaxial diamond deposition. So the term homoepitaxial means that you grow diamond on an existing diamond substrate. So we'll be talking about large gem quality diamond and diamond encapsulated sensors for extreme environment. The second topic is nanocrystalline diamond deposition on metals. So one specific area we'll be discussing is the wear-resistant biomedical implants. And then we are going to move on to super hard materials other than diamond based on carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, and boron, so-called snow materials. And lastly, I will cover some recent developments in machine learning that have been applied in the discovery of novel materials. So plasma-based methods for material deposition. So just recall that plasmas are weakly ionized gases consisting of a collection of electrons, ion, a neutral atomic and reactive molecular species. So one of the key part of my talk is also going to be about reactive molecular species, which are present in plasma, which allow for new growth chemistry. So the plasma we'll be employing have typically ion densities from 10 to the 8 to 10 to the 14 per cubic centimeters. And keep in mind that these are low temperature plasma where electron energies are a few EVs, typically half an electron volt or 1 electron volt, and ion energies are few tenths of an EV. So these are the 2 main experimental tools we'll be using when describing this research. So those are the microwave plasma chemical vapor deposition at UAB. So basically you use a microwave power source, which is 2.45 gigahertz, to excite your plasma. And then depending on the microwave power, you have the deposition area, which is, you can see by the size of this chamber here. So, we have a 2 kilowatt system, which is used for mostly homoepitaxial diamond growth. And we have a larger 6 kilowatt system, which is used for more polycrystalline growth of materials. So, and the reason why we treat these two systems differently is that one system, which is used for single crystal growth, is ultra clean in terms of both vacuum environment, because when you're talking about single crystal, you're talking about very pure materials. Okay. So a brief intro to the plasma chemistry which take place. So I'm just going to start with a simple example of methane and hydrogen gas. And suppose we input the microwave power as I shown you in the previous slide. So what happens is that it causes a breakdown of these gases, and you generate radicals out of methane and hydrogen. And one radical is, of course, in abundance is the atomic hydrogen. So we start with a substrate which is terminated with a hydrogen. And why we want to do this is because we want that surface not to reconstruct into something that we do not want. So imagine that you have a hydrogen atom in the plasma come in and actually extract another hydrogen, forming a hydrogen molecule. And that leaves us a vacancy here, which can be either filled by a hydrogen or by our desired species, which is a carbon in this case. So we have a carbon species which attach. So you can think about that this way, repeating this process, we can actually have a layer of carbon attached to the surface of the substrate. And this process then can be repeated again, and the cycle continues till you deposit a carbon-based material, mostly from our point of view, a carbon which is bonded in a specific way, like four-fold bonding, like a diamond crystal. Okay, so with that brief introduction of how the diamond crystal grows on an existing diamond substrate, we are going to move on to some of the actual experiments. So this is a shot of the plasma which is created in the chamber, and you see here down below is a molybdenum substrate, and here is an example of actually a diamond crystal sitting in a plasma. Okay, so typical temperatures are a lot higher than what you see here. In growth is about 1200 degrees Celsius. So this has been viewed through a filter, so you can actually see the diamond clearly. Okay, so the question is why we want to grow a large single crystal diamond. There is a economic driver for large gem quality diamond is, as you know, that as the weight of the diamond increases and the natural diamond price goes up. And from our point of view, for some scientific experiments where you need these large diamond crystals, for example, for high pressure material research, the cost of natural diamond become very prohibitive. So there is both the scientific and economic reasons for growing these large diamond crystals. So one of the simplest experiments you can do is you take a diamond plate. This is actually typically, this is a yellow diamond plate, which is doped with nitrogen, and you put it in a microwave plasma, and you can see within few hours, you can actually enlarge this plate. The size has gone up because of the placement in the microwave plasma chemical vapor deposition system. So there's a lot of work goes on in this field, but I want to just show you the results which have been obtained have been really remarkable. You can grow diamonds up to 10 carat using this process. And those single crystal diamonds have been actually used in some of the high pressure experiments which I described. You can also, with this method, by controlling impurities, you can grow commercial white, very ultra pure diamond using this technique. Okay, so moving on to the next area about this homoepitaxial is continuing with the theme about growing diamond on an existing diamond substrate. We talk about homoepitaxial encapsulation of diamond-based sensors. So here we are going to do some lithography and actually put diamond sensors on top of a diamond crystal. So this is the Diamond Microfab lab at UAB. You can draw any pattern on the computer, and that pattern or circuit can be transferred onto the diamond. And this is the metal deposition, which basically is the metal which the circuits are made of. So these are some examples of microfabrication of 8 electrical probe on top of the diamond. You can make more sophisticated loop anvils, which have really a magnetic coil actually fabricated on top of the diamond anvils. So to just demonstrate the capability, the micron level capability, this is our UAB logo actually on a glass slide. And this, you are really looking in a microscope where these lines are about 5 micron in diameter. So these lines are 5 micron across, and the entire this has been fabricated. Imagine that it has been fabricated on top of a human hair. So you can do microlithography on a very fine scale on diamond. So how do we actually accomplish this in practice? So imagine that you have a diamond crystal. This is about 1/3 of a carat, about 4 millimeter across. You fabricate a sensor on tip of this diamond anvil with the microlithography, which I described in the previous view graph. And then after you have fabricated this sensor, you can actually put it in the microwave plasma chemical vapor deposition system and encapsulate these circuits. So this is an example of the anvil in the bottom here, bottom left, and this is top left. You see this close up of this electrical probes, and the middle top here, you have a pattern which is encapsulated. After diamond growth, you see this rough, area, rough steps due to the grown diamond. And then you can polish this off actually to expose your sensing probes. So here you see the metal, the shiny metal coming out are the probes which are sticking out of the diamond, and the rest of the probes are actually encapsulated in a single crystal diamond. So same thing here for a coil, and on the right top and the right bottom here, that coil is actually embedded in a CVD diamond layer. So I'm just going to show you one example of such a sensor, and this diamond with embedded sensor has been used to measure transition in material under high pressure. So what you are looking at here on the left side of the slide is the red is electrical resistance as a function of time, and the same time the blue is the pressure in the cell. So what you see here is that the electrical resistance of the gallium arsenide sample drops by several orders of magnitude as it becomes metal under high pressure. And as you release the pressure, as indicated by the decrease here in the blue curve, the resistance goes back up again, and it becomes a semiconductor. So important thing is that we can transmit this data wirelessly, and this is wirelessly transmitted voltage data showing the same thing, same transition. So this is an example of where the encapsulated diamond sensors have been used to study the properties of materials under extreme conditions. Okay, so now we are going to make a transition. So the two examples I gave you so far were where we have grown a single crystal diamond on top of an existing, so to speak, seed crystal. But we can also grow microcrystalline films or polycrystalline films, and into the extreme, we can grow a very fine-grained nanocrystalline film where the grain size is billionths of a meter using the low-temperature plasma. So, here the plasma chemistry issue become very important. So let's just imagine we have a microwave source. We have input gas of hydrogen and methane. We dump some energy into it. We have this plasma, and I showed you a schematic how the diamond film grows on the substrate. But now if you look into the chemical kinetics, so-called ChemKin calculation of what it entails in terms of what are the species which are present in the plasma as you increase the gas phase temperature. One thing to pay attention on is this purple curve, which shows us that the atomic hydrogen increases a lot by several orders of magnitude as we increase the gas phase temperature. Another thing to note is the CH3 radical with this green curve, which picks up as you increase the gas phase temperature. And then, of course, you have short-term burst of ethylene, and then you also have acetylene, C2H2 in the plasma. So you can see that plasma is producing some of these activated chemical species, which can give rise to novel material deposition. And one such example about plasma chemistry is seen in this graph. And on the left side, what you are seeing is a polycrystalline diamond film grown with a methane and hydrogen plasma. And the scale bar here is 10 microns. So you see this white bar here. So you can see here that the diamond grain size is about 2 to 3 microns. But as soon as you put a little bit of nitrogen in the plasma, which is the details are given here. If nitrogen to methane is about 10% of methane, you see that the film becomes very fine grained and becomes very smooth. And one of the drawbacks of application of diamond film technology has been the surface roughness. These films are too rough for most applications, and they scratch the opposite articulating surface with the growth chemistry morphology like this. So this was a very exciting development. So so in terms of fundamental, what is happening in the plasma which is causing this? And so we have to think about a concept of a supersaturation ratio for carbon, which we denote by this parameter S. So if we have number of vacant lattice sites on the surface, and NC is the number of carbon radical in the plasma, then this supersaturation ratio is the number of carbon radicals divided by the number of vacant sites. And of course, based on our model, the NV depends on hydrogen abstraction reaction. And of course, is a function of atomic hydrogen. And NC depends on what is our carbon carrying species, could be CH3, could be acetylene, and so on. So a general observation is that you grow microcrystalline film when you have a low value of carbon supersaturation. And if you have a high value of S, you grow nanocrystalline film. And the reason is very simple. For example, the case I showed you about a nitrogen addition. So what that is doing is the nitrogen molecule in the plasma is soaking up microwave energy, because nitrogen-nitrogen bond is really very strong, and that leads to reduction of the energy available for producing atomic hydrogen. So the supersaturation ratio S increases when you add nitrogen, and that's why we get the nanocrystalline. So this is a kind of simple explanation for nitrogen-induced nanocrystallinity. There are other ways to produce nanocrystalline film by just upping the carbon concentration in the plasma, and that also gives a nanocrystalline diamond film deposition. So how do we really analyze this? So one of the very useful techniques which are available to us is the optical emission spectroscopy. So we can, highlight some of the species which we see in the microwave plasma's CVD system. For example, carbon dimer emission is at 512. This is basically makes the plasma actually really green. This is a green emission. Then you have a purple emission at 656 nanometer. Those are the hydrogen Balmer line. And then you have a CN emission, which is in the deep blue range. And that's precisely what we see. This is pure hydrogen plasma. You add methane, you start seeing the carbon dimer. And as you add nitrogen, you begin to see the CN radical in the plasma. So the diagnostics become very useful because you can control the reactive ion species in the plasma. And so the practical impact, and this is on the right side here, is a scale of the surface roughness. And you see as we add nitrogen, the film becomes a lot smoother, which is desirable for application. And also on the left side is that we do have to sacrifice some amount of crystalline diamond phase, and it becomes a little lower as because we do have a more composite looking diamond film where you have these very small grains of diamond embedded in an amorphous carbon matrix. So how small you can go with this? There is a term used in the literature called ultra smooth nanocrystalline diamond, USND, which have been deposited on this aerospace alloy, titanium 6, aluminum 4, vanadium. And the smallest size you can go up to is about 6 nanometers. So thinking about now application, I did state that your crystalline content of diamond goes down a little bit. The question is, how does it compromises the properties which we are used to that of, single crystal diamond? And this graph kind of answers that question. Here, what we have done is plotted the hardness of the material in a nano indentation experiment where we push an indenter into the surface of the nanocrystalline diamond film. And interesting thing to note here is that you retain up to 70 to 80% of the hardness of diamond. At the same time, keeping the nano smoothness of the diamond coating on the material. Another surprising thing really was, that just to use that phrase, that diamond is forever, that once you deposit these nanostructured diamond coatings on titanium alloy, what we found was that they are very difficult to remove. So if you try to push, indenters into very, very high load, the film still is adhered and actually only shows some micro cracking at the periphery, which was kind of an interesting observation, because a diamond initially was thought to be an intrinsically brittle material, which will shatter, but these nano indentation tests, especially on the nanostructured diamond coatings on metals, have indicated that these are really films which are not susceptible to delamination. So one obvious application for these materials are in biomedical joints, like hip and knee joints, where you want low surface friction, you want minimal wear. So we basically translated this technology into diamond coating on curved surfaces, like a knee simulant. And then we actually put this diamond coated implant into a knee simulator, where it articulated against the ultra high molecular polyethylene, which is a current industrial standard of using metal on polymer couples. And here we show that this remains adhered after 1.6 million cycle, which is about 1 year of clinical use, that there is no delamination. Okay, so the idea here is to show that nanostructured diamond materials have some unique applications in areas where you can have high demands on low mechanical wear, high strength, and so on. And of course, biocompatibility, which carbon is a biocompatible material. So now we are going to go to the next topic. And now we are going to move away from both single crystal and polycrystalline diamond and say what other super hard materials are there which can be grown by low temperature plasma methods. So first of all, let me give you a working definition for what we call as a super hard materials. I showed you some hardness data. So super hard materials are defined as class of material whose Vickers hardness is greater than 40 gigapascals. And for example, diamond is 100 gigapascal hardness, approximately cubic boron nitride is 50. So why we are looking at new materials? That's because there are certain limitations at high temperatures. For example, diamond tend to oxidize in air around beginning as low as 600 degrees Celsius. So it's not meant for high temperature application in oxidizing atmospheres. Cubic boron nitride is a bit better, but also is limited up to about 1,000. But there are applications where you need higher temperatures and you need also high hardness. That's why there has been an impetus to study materials which are in this part of the periodic table: carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, and boron, so-called the SNOB materials. And there are several exotic materials which have been studied over the years, more so by high pressure, high temperature techniques, which are kind of limited in the size of samples they can produce. On the other hand, low temperature plasma technologies are scalable, and there is a interest in looking at some of these novel materials to really synthesize them by low temperature plasma methods. So here is this SNOB tetrahedra, so to speak. So you have carbon, boron, oxygen, and nitrogen, several of the important materials, which are already somewhat known or indicated on the outside. And because of limitation of time, I'm really going to focus on the binary BC material. So we are going to actually, in my talk, just travel along this BC axis and make some prediction about SNOB in general. So first, let's look at boron. And the first question we are going to look at is how much of boron actually we can put in a diamond lattice and get away with it. And so first, when we started experimenting with this, we had a surprise, and that was, remember I showed you this nanocrystalline diamond films, which we have deposited using methane, hydrogen, and nitrogen chemistry. And if we add diboron in the plasma, which is B2H6, to our surprise, we found that it has gone back to a microcrystalline film, which is, of course, doped with boron. And the reason, again, thinking about that carbon supersaturation ratio, remember, the diboron is B2H6. So by addition of more hydrogen in the plasma, we are lowering the carbon supersaturation ratio, which gives rise to, again, a microcrystalline film. And then coming to the question of how much of boron we can put in the diamond lattice so this is just the X-ray diffraction of looking at the diamond peak, 111 diffraction peak from diamond. So you see a nanocrystalline, nanostructured diamond has a very broad peak because it has a very small grain size. The microcrystalline diamond is a sharp peak, and the boron BND, boron nanocrystalline diamond, we call it BND, has now a crystalline peak, but it is shifted in 2 theta angle from the microcrystalline. In fact, so what it's telling us is that the lattice parameter of diamond increases as you put boron. In fact, you can use that information to show that you have 8 times 10 to the 20 boron atoms in this diamond lattice. and using the carbon concentration, which corresponds to about 0.45 atomic percent of boron. So Dr. Cheng Chin has also predicted a BC5 material, which means that you have, for each boron atom, you have 5 carbon atoms. It has a very stable structure, which has been predicted. And by upping the boron concentration in the plasma, our goal was to really make this BC5 material. And the BC5 material predicted by theory is actually very stable. So these are the phonon calculation, and these are the on the right side are the phonon density of state. The red curve is that of the diamond, and the blue curve is that of the BC5 material. So, so very qualitative observations are that the phonon spectrum is shifted downwards, but it also has more structure, and we should be on the lookout for these additional peak in our Raman spectroscopy. So experimentally, what we found was that we can generate 2 types of morphology in our experiments. One of them, we measured the hardness, what we call it a soft. The hardness is about 8 gigapascals. So soft is a relatively relative term here. This hardness is much greater than most of the hard metals, you know. The second was a material which has hardness of about 62 gigapascals. And the Raman spectrum, of course, indicated the multiple structure like was predicted by theory. It agrees quite well with theory. And the soft material has some graphitic peaks in it, which may be the graphite doped with boron, actually. So then we went and directly measured what is the boron content in these films. So there's a technique called X-ray photoelectron spectroscopy. And what it showed was that the soft material has a boron concentration of 2.9%, and the hard material has a boron content of 7.7%. So we concluded that 7.7% is almost the maximum boron you can put in the diamond lattice. In fact, our X-ray diffraction just showed us the diamond structure and nothing else. So the summary is that the BC5 crystalline structure remains still elusive in our CVD experiment. But we have produced a very heavily doped diamond material. Moving on now to a boron-rich compound. Again, theory has predicted a material B50C2, which is predicted to have also high hardness. And there were a crystal structure proposal from theory based on, so this was what was proposed in the literature. And what we found out is when you do the phonon calculation, you found that some of the modes have negative frequency, meaning that this structure is unstable against displacement. And so the theory predicted a stable structure. And this high boron content material was synthesized for the first time by plasma methods. And there was an excellent agreement between theory and experiment in where the X-ray diffraction peak should be. and the hardness is about 37 GPa. So this material, we suspect, will be very stable under high temperature environment and could be used in application which require high temperatures and high strength. Another work actually done by Dr. Catledge group at UAB, just like we shown for the nanocrystalline diamond structures, you can also grow a nanocrystalline B50C2 type of material. So this may have, parallel application like we talk about, having an additional attractive feature of low friction and low wear and a very high wear resistance, and at the same time be a high temperature coating in applications. Okay, so in the last part of my talk, I'm going to cover something new which we have started looking at, are these high entropy materials. And this is a very exciting area in material science, is that think about a high entropy material as one where you have more than 5 elements which are distributed randomly in a crystal structure. So it could be a high entropy alloy, it could be a high entropy oxide, it could be a high entropy carbide, it could be a high entropy boride. The idea here is that the metallic elements are 5 or larger and they are distributed randomly. And why these materials are of interest is that you can hopefully create materials which are better than the constituent elements, constituents, boride, carbide, oxide, and nitride, and so on. And what interests us for application standpoint of view are the high temperature properties. And these materials are actually stabilized by the entropy of mixing, or configurational entropy, because the entropy of mixing is given by gas constant multiplied the natural log of n, where n is the number of elements. And if you put 5 here, you get 1.61 times the gas constant. So recall from thermodynamics that the Gibbs free energy is given by enthalpy minus temperature times the entropy. So if you have high entropy of mixing, you also have structures which have low free energy, lower free energy than the constituent materials. So that's the reason why you can stabilize these materials, observe them, and hopefully look for their application. And this T terms is also important, is that as you go to higher temperatures, it even becomes more stable at higher temperatures. It becomes more negative here. So it is anticipated that these materials can have some very exciting high temperature properties, even have some very exciting mechanical properties. So we have just now started looking in our CPU2L consortium on the high entropy materials. And this is work largely done in Dr. Catledge group. And one of the things which we have looked at are the borides, high entropy boride materials. And this is really one of the very first results using the low temperature plasma to synthesize these high entropy boride materials. So here, what you do here is start with metal oxide as precursors, whatever metals you want in the plasma, in this plasma chemistry. So you start with the metal oxide, you mix them with a source of boron. Remember, our goal is to make borides, and then you have some additional carbon because it's a Boron-Carbon thermal reduction using the low temperature plasma. So you start with oxide, which are very complex pattern in X-ray diffraction. And after you done your plasma treatment, you get a very simple crystalline structure, which is hexagonal and is basically equimolar tantalum, molybdenum, hafnium, zirconium, titanium, boride. So this is a one-step process for making these powder without use of high pressure. And this is just the beginning of, I think, work on the high entropy material by low temperature plasma. So one thing very important is I have pointed out to you, several materials which are promising for a variety of applications. So within CPU2AL, we have developed a large area microwave plasma chemical vapor deposition system, which is 30 centimeter by 30 centimeter, and has some very unique plasma array technology. You see these 4 plasma arrays here, and you see these multiple gas inlets for uniform distribution of your reactive gases to be introduced into the chamber. So idea here is that this plasma array technology is scalable. So if you find something exciting in your pilot studies, you can go into the large area manufacturing for a real world application. And this system is operational at UAB, showing 2 different types of plasma. You have the air plasma here and the hydrogen plasma here. We have also implemented plasma emission spectroscopy in this system. You can see that with higher resolution than what the plasma emission spectroscopy shown here, you see a lot more details on different species, what you see here in the plasma, and you can get a lot of important diagnostics information for processing. And the bottom graph here is just some of the initial deposition showing carbon coatings in this large area CVD system. So the last topic I'm going to talk about is the machine learning enabled discovery of novel materials. And as you might have already guessed with our synthesis of specific materials that this is a very large space. And Dr. Cheng Chien in our CPU2AL have developed machine learning model using more than 10,000 compounds, basically predicting the bulk modulus, the shear modulus, which are kind of a prediction of how how would be the strength of the material is going to be. And these materials are of course, there are numerous materials contained in these triangles, but I want to really focus on the machine learning predictions of 3 specific compounds. which are B, C10, C10N, hardness of 75 GPa, B4, C5N3 with a hardness of 62 GPa, and B2, C3N of hardness of 49 GPa. So these three materials have been predicted by machine learning models, and they need to be actively looked on by the plasma CVD methods. And preliminary results of this machine learning predictions are already available in the open literature. Okay, so to conclude, the four topics which I discussed today, and that is, so I have shown you that the low temperature plasma techniques have been developed to grow large gem quality diamond. The diamond-based sensors have been developed using the low temperature plasmas and have seen applications in materials under extreme conditions, measuring properties of materials like electrical conductivity, magnetic susceptibility, and so on. The nanocrystalline diamond coatings on metals provide a robust platform for wear-resistant application, and one application is the wear-resistant biomedical implants. I have shown synthesis of heavily doped boron-doped diamond, a high temperature material B50C2, and high entropy transition metal borides, and large area CVD system has been developed for scale up and manufacturing of these novel materials. And machine learning enabled discovery of novel materials from SNOB is currently underway. So thank you for your attention.
Thanks again, Dr. Vohra, for this presentation. We would like to thank everyone for joining this live stream. And at this time, we don't have any questions for you, Dr. Vohra. So this is the end of our presentation, everyone. Thanks.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Thank you, Dana.
Bye-bye.
Bye.